And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Steve Klassen, who during his near-death experience saw family and loved ones on the other side. Steve, thank you for joining me today and welcome.
Great to be here, Jeff. Enjoyed it.
Well, Steve, if you don't mind, let's start on the day you died and go from there.
I was a school administrator. I was 57 years old, 20 years ago now. I'm 77 is when it occurred, my experience. I was going through some physical problems months up to my death. And it was during a quadruple bypass surgery in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But this problem I was having seemed to be stomach problems, and I kept getting treated by a doctor. Problems with my stomach, and I kept getting burping, and it found out it was very similar to what Bill Clinton was experiencing. No real heart signs of any problems. Anyways, I went to the VA and had the nuclear stress test, expecting to just come home the next day, and they stopped the test in the middle and it says, "You're going in for surgery," because I was about ready to totally die. My father died at age 40 of a heart attack. My brothers have all had something with their heart concerns, so it's a hereditary thing. So I went into the hospital that night towards evening, and early in the morning, they performed the surgery. Everything went well. And during the day, I was recovering, came out of the anesthesia, and things seemed to be okay. They kept checking me, and finally came towards evening, and my wife decided to go to a hotel, and I would spend the night. And all of a sudden, during the night, I started going into some very difficult breathing, pain, panic, just a lot of things going on. And I seemed to be in my mind. I thought something's happening. I'm slipping away. And then I heard at that moment, I heard some buzzers going off, and I saw staff nurses coming into the room in a hurry. And all of a sudden, as this is all going on, I looked up, and just pain was just extreme. And from what I learned later, I'd been going into a death, and my heart was stopping, and they were working on me. Anyways, they called my wife back and said to come back to the hospital. But in the meantime, my actual death experience was right in the middle of this pain and panic and confusion and a fear. Um, all of a sudden, I looked to the ceiling, and I saw as it were an opening. As these nurses were, I saw the staff rushing around me, and right in the middle of it, I saw two angelic, I guess they were beings. They seemed to have long, flowing white robes, and they came right down into where I was at and took me up into away from the bed. I felt my reality was leaving, and I saw the room passing by me as I left. I didn't look back to see if my body was there as some do. I just kept ascending with these two, and I don't know how long I was in this tunnel of light, but all the pain, everything was gone. The fear, um, fear of death, all of it was gone, and I ascended to came into this large area of light, and as I was there, all of a sudden I saw beings like angelic beings that seemed to be in some kind of order, standing. They were dressed in white. They looked, all of them looked like the prime, like their faces were radiant, and they looked like they were in the prime of their life, possibly 24, 25 years old. And then from that group of people that I was seeing, and I recognized as a choir, because my father was a choir director, and my mother was a excellent opera singer and soloist, and they were both really special people. And they appeared to me, and I saw them, and I started. Of course, I hadn't seen my father since I was 8 years old, but I recognized his face from his essence, and was able to commune with them, and then this love started flowing to me. It was like, I'll explain later what it did to me, but it was such an unconditional love that just flowed into me, and I had lived with a lot of fear as a youth in a really strict religion, fear of God being mean and demanding and distant, and it all left, and I realized that everything I had learned about God as through religion, and I was in the Mennonite religion, much like last week's guest, Joshua Jost, exactly the same religion he was in, but mine was so overbearing with fear of not doing the right thing, rules, very a God that got angry if I was during a particular day, if I was broke any rule, he would I wouldn't get to go to heaven later, and everything was based on later going to this heaven. So I lived with a lot of fear, and when I went into this heaven itself, I realized that everything I'd learned was wrong, and the fear that had been with me till that age of 57, that I had acquired as a youth, as a, from day one, was always there. I realized it was always a part of my seeking in my existence and my thoughts. Always this fear that I was not going to measure up, and I was going to go to hell. Basically, and that's what I was told by my religion and everyone around me. But the main thing that happened in this, as my parents were there, and I realized they were just love, and everything there was love, and there was nothing but love. And love was the source of my existence, the source of creation, the source of everything was love, acceptance, and that there was no hell. It did not exist. And of course, it was a big shock to me because it was a big part of the fear of going to a hell. It was a big part of my reality. So, but when I and then I don't know, it seemed like I may have been there. Time kind of stood still. I had no concept of time, but I looked around and I saw beings coming towards me, and sometimes they were a grandpa or someone that I had recognized with a soft smile, and then they disappear. And then I was able to hug especially my mother, who was just a unconditional lover to her kids. She hugged me and gave me uh, said peace, peace to you. And then I realized that there was no that I was home. It was almost like a deja vu came over me. Like everything was so familiar, like I'd been there before. And not today, as I commit to the meditation I use, it, I actually know that it's totally true that we were there in the beginning. We were at the foundations of the earth. We were dancing as our spiritual existence. And when I was able to go to this near-death experience, I returned home and was assured that this is where I was, will be, and am. So right now, I know that I'm my light body, my spirit body. That's its home, and it descends on me in my meditations, and my physical body is joined with my spirit body in meditation, and that's where the kingdom of love is available to every human being, because that love, that spirit identity, is in every single human being on earth. And I'll explain that a little later. But I saw that there was so much love, and then there was some negotiation. Like you were sent from the beginning. You were in a conclave, a meeting, where you chose to come to Earth through this Stephen Klassen body in 1946, and you knew then when the plan came that you would forget this glorious place, this heavenly spiritual home, that you would live on the earth and you would be confronted with this God away from you, and you would actually forget um, the beauty that existed there. But you have to go back because your mission isn't finished, and you're going to be given special instructions when you go back to how to find this heavenly nirvana place on earth again within you. And so I all of a sudden, I just was back in the room, and as I looked up, I saw those two angels ascending back into this opening, and they disappeared. And then I believe my wife had arrived by then, and I was back in my body, and I was really feeling good again. Whatever they had done to me or whatever it was, but I was on the road to recovery, and it ended up leaving the hospital 2 days later, and went through the therapy and regained my health. It's been 20 years now since I had that, and but the thing was so powerful was the thing that I let go of this my concept of God that I had, and I had no more fear. All the fear that when you go through that as a child, you're traumatized. It's almost like an abuse happens to that kind of fearful God, and it affects you all the way into your adulthood. But when I came back, I since then I've never once had a fear that I was a failure, that I would go to a hell, that I would disappoint a God. It's just all went away and never has been back since. It was nothing but peace, that all is well, and that I'm able to be live in that heavenly place. The dwelling place of God is within my physical body for me, and that's the final thing. It's also in everything, in every photon, and everything on Earth. It's love is that source at the center of everything, and so that I come every day to that source of love that I experienced in that near death experience, and I'm able to actually go there again now in my ascension in meditation, and actually go to that same place, that home that I knew in the beginning, and be conscious of it, be awakened. I was just asleep, uh, uh, not knowing that, but the near that experience awakened me to the reality of it, and then especially the past loved ones. My father, especially, um, is one of my guardian angels. He's been assigned to me, and it actually reveals himself to me in times of trouble, and in meditations. Sometimes will comfort me. And my mother, I call her the hugging angel, because she's almost every day she'll come and whisper some wisdom in my ear, and say, walk on. So that's kind of the near death experience. But the my history in religion, and now my uh, meditations that have come into my mystical life that I live was actually um, generated from that near death experience.
Steve, thank you for sharing your experience with us. What is your mission?
I believe I have a message, and I've been shown that, and the message is that the kingdom of love is within you. It's not here or there or up or down. For every person, they can find nirvana, the kingdom within them. And my message is that the Messiah, which is the anointing oil, uh, is fully alive within every human being. That it doesn't have to come in the sky. It doesn't have to. You don't have to go there to find it. You don't have to travel around. The Messiah is within everyone, and when we awaken, we see, our eyes are opened, and we understand our identity as spirit bodies. And my whole um, meditation began actually 50 years ago. I grew up a Mennonite, as Josh did, and very strict. And I basically grew up rejecting the Mennonite religion because of the strictness and a lot of inconsistencies that I saw and experienced. In fact, I went into the Marine Corps. The Mennonites were pacifists. My father was a pacifist in World War II, and the kids were expected to be pacifists. I never was baptized into the Mennonites because I just didn't, for some reason, and now I see why, because I had a different path, but I just didn't do it. I told my mother I can't do it, and she understood and unconditionally loved me, and didn't make me uh, do that. But my trek was um, the opposite of pacifism. I joined the Marine Corps, and I went to the Vietnam War, and had a lot of dark experiences there of war and fear, but that fear always stayed with me. That deep fear, In fact, when I came back from the war, I joined the Veterans Against the Vietnam War organization at the Mankato State University here, and got into college. And of course, that was the summer of love and um, drugs and hippies, and I became a seeker and a mystical seeker. And I had a drug experience that brought that fear that I had been put in me at one time that was the most frightening thing that ever happened to me. I totally went insane by this fear that confronted me, and I was starting to get little bits of, like, I call it raindrops of mysticism and spirituality through my years, and then now especially the last 10 years, it's like a rainstorm. But it started up with just raindrops. It's kind of a metaphor. So, anyways, I went to this. I was taking some mescaline and tripping on drugs, and I went into this fear, and it appeared to me like a demon or something, and it was in me, and I lost my ability to be sane, and I rolled on the floor, and I screamed out, and I didn't know at that time. I really didn't have any God or anything, and I just cried out, "Have mercy on me!" And instantly, as soon as I said "me," I came out of that fear, and I was just at a total rest, peace. And I never had experienced how deep it was, and I could see that was now I was being called away to this calling. And I went to my two friends who were in a rock and roll band, and they were also under the influences of this drug. And as soon as I walked in and said something happened to me, they looked at my face, and the same thing happened to them. And we thought we were had been having some kind of deep spiritual. We didn't know what to do, so we went to the campus ministry and started talking to these people. And they thought we were all nuts. They didn't have any idea what we were going through. But what we were going through was like a Kundalini experience of peace and spiritual awakening. So that kind of got me going. And I started going into looking, seeking, like pilgrim. I saw myself um, as a person that had a reason and a reason to be here, but I didn't know exactly what it was yet. So I, in the meantime, I got married, met my wife, and 10 days later we got married. It was a real '60s thing, and we ended up having two beautiful children, and life kept going on, and I just kept seeking. I did hatha yoga. I read all kinds of mystics and the Bible, and then I had in 1969, I believe it was, I was uh, in a really dark place of fear, not so much fear, but um, things in my marriage and my kids, and things were really dark, and I was crying for mercy. I remember I had a job, and I wept the whole afternoon. I started praying. I said, "Would some God please help me? Because things are falling apart. My family was falling apart. And I was not a very mature husband, and uh, just a lot of things." Anyways, I went home that night, and I took my bike to the grocery store, and a man stopped me on the street, and out of the blue, he said, "Are you having difficulties?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, Jesus sent me to you," he said. So he came, and I had this Jesus people experience where he laid his hands on me, and I had this spirit fall upon me, and that was another step. As I look now, it wasn't the final step, but it was an opening, like an awakening for me. And a lot of people were experiencing that at that time. It was called the Jesus People movement, and we uh, got together and started groups and had supernatural experiences and healings and what seemed to be a lot of love. But then it turned really sour. The group that I was in turned into a cult, and I was actually shunned by my best friends for 10 years because I did not follow the cult leader. And in the middle of that, I started going into this aloneness, like um, what would you call it? A sojourner, someone that's. I was led to be by the spirit of love to be alone and not to listen to any man. I was told, don't find a guru, don't look to a leader, just start meditating alone. So I did, and I met a woman along the way who was very spiritual, and she was totally in love with the tabernacle pattern given to Moses in the wilderness. And I got attached to that, and I started studying that. I didn't know what it was yet, but it was 7 pieces of furniture, and if they followed the 7 pieces of furniture through the wilderness, they got to their promised land, their nirvana. And I saw that within my body, it says your body is a tabernacle. Within my body, I have 7 endocrine glands, which line up perfectly with the 7 pieces of furniture, being the Holy of Holies and the Ark of the Covenant within the brain, and then down through the body, the 7 chakras, basic what they are, wheels of energy. So I started following that as first of all, started as a prayer, going through these 7 pieces of furniture as daily, going to them and just listening and being still. And it got more and more powerful. And then when I retired from my job, and when I went into this near death experience, I realized that uh, this was my message, that this tabernacle it's with every single human being has these 7 endocrine glands in their physical bodies, which means that those 7 pieces of furniture that lead you to God, to the source of God, are available to every single man, not just uh, certain people that like Christians or Jews or Muslims or whatever, how they've divided up, but every man can find uh, that place within them if they go in and look and use that as a pattern for meditation. So that's what I began to do, just for myself. I didn't share it with anyone, and I began to have deeper and deeper revelations that this was the spirit of Elijah. When the spirit of Elijah comes to the earth to proclaim that the Messiah is going to come to the earth and save the earth, it says that um, he will the spirit of Elijah will suddenly come to the tabernacle, suddenly come to the tabernacle. And so there's the tabernacle on this. So all these things about the tabernacle, when John the went up into his meditation in the Revelation, he saw the New Jerusalem coming down, and the first thing he said was, "The tabernacle of God is with men." So there's a mystery, a secret of the tabernacle. There's a psalm that says, "To behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his tabernacle." Or in the time of trouble, he will hide you in the secret of his tabernacle. He will cover you. So there's a secret that, I guess my message is that I want everyone that I know to know that within them they can find, they don't have to do anything because their spirit identity is already God, and we are God. Our spirits are God, and we don't look for a man upstairs or anything, but we look in the mirror. In the tabernacle, there's a laver that has a mirror, and the priest looks in and he sees his own image. And then there's a scripture that says, when he appears, we will see him as he is, and we shall be like him. So my message is that we are God, to put it that simple.
What type of meditation do you practice?
Well, I would call it a mystical. Uh, I use the tabernacle, and I would call it a mystical tabernacle meditation. And I go through each step, and as I do it, my my consciousness my comes alive, and I begin to understand things. A voice comes to me and explains things, and as I ascend, my my spirit body descends. My uh, earthly body, celestial and terrestrial, ascends. King and a priest, they ascend and they meet together in the heart chakra, which is the table of showbread with 12 loaves of bread. And you eat one of those loaves of bread, and you become one with the 12. And the 12 is symbolic of the corporate God, is the number 12. God is not one. He's one, but he's one in a corporate revelation of, and the number 12 reveals that mystery. So as I've been experiencing deeper and deeper, to the point where now I go in as my earthly identity, and I know that my heavenly identity is descending, and I ascend, and is within several deep breaths. I use the Om chant for my. It's kind of an eclectic um, meditation. It's not really something that's out there, except one man that I know of used it, and it was Edgar Casey, the psychic. used the same pattern for his meditation to enter his. He was called the sleeping prophet. He entered this spiritual place to get wisdom, and he used. I found out later after it came to me that he also used that. So it's rare, but it's very real. I mean, I guess my message would be I'd like to share that. I did put it online. It seems like there's a time for it to be known, but it still remains kind of a mystery. But what I experience right now, just to make it really simple, I experience, um, I guess you'd call it the marriage of the Lamb. My earthly identity, my heavenly identity are joined and married together within my tabernacle, and then the Shekinah glory that descended into the tabernacle is actually a spiritual experience for us today. I found that the whole Old Testament, New Testament are totally metaphors of mystic mysteries. It was never intended to be, as it's used in religion, to be a set of rules and all the things that happen to it. Everything is a metaphor, and then as you go into this tabernacle, these metaphors are revealed to you, so that you can understand and experience the I am that I am, God. He when you say his name, the beauty of it is when Moses turned to the bush and he said, "What's your name?" And he said, "I am that I am." So when Moses says, "I am that I am," the first thing you say, "Who is God?" You say it verbally. You say, "I am." So every man that says that and realizes that will begin to experience uh, the beauty and reality that we are him. And like Jesus, his message actually was he was Son of Man who realized Son of God, and he was a mystic, a Jewish mystic. He was not a Christian. And Moses who got this pattern, lived 40 years with his father-in-law on the backside of the desert named Jethro, and he was a mystic priest who used meditation in his religion. So Moses was very schooled for 40 years in mysticism. So he was a part of this mystical metaphor that that now we can look to and accept and experience. So I put a thing online about first a little introduction to this, and then an example of how to go through the 7 steps on a typical day, and let the mysticism and the beauty and the power of love come to you, and in the end you come into the Holy of Holies. The pineal gland is the mercy seat, and the pituitary gland is the Ark of the Covenant within your actual mind. And when you get to that point, you enter there, and it said there was no natural light there. So when you enter in meditation, the light that you receive is that light from the. And now I become to realize it's the same light in the near-death experience that I'm entering, and then I have almost the same experience that I had in the near-death experience in meditation, where I can actually converse with saints, my mother and father, of course. And one, a few weeks ago, I was walking in this state of meditation, and Yogi Nanda came to me and hugged me. So it's like there's the Christianity I knew was very strict and narrow, and everything was a sin, and you had to be careful because Satan would deceive you. But in the tabernacle, the first thing you realize is there is no such thing as Satan. There's only fire. There's the lake of fire, and God is part of God's nature is He's a consuming fire, but He allows uh, things that seem dark, like the alchemy of creating gold. He allows suffering to a certain point so that we can confront it and submit to it and come through it. And then the gold comes down upon us and we leave it behind. And we realize that the idea of Satan and darkness is nothing but a teacher to teach us. And it does say in the Bible, God created evil to work his good. And so the more you come into that freedom that there is no such thing as hell, there's no such thing as the devil, there's no such thing as, and you can just, and that's what I let go in the near death experience. I let go of all the heaviness that I'd come into, and I came into a new, fresh flow of love that now is so real. And I realize that it's in every human being. It's just there latent. People have not. Many are sleeping, not awakened to it. Many are awakening. I know. I'm starting to meet more and more people that are awakening to this mystical. It's the second coming of Christ. Yogi Nanda wrote the best Christian book I've ever written is written by the Hindu man Yogi Nanda that was a missionary to the United States. It's called The Second Coming of Christ. And it's this beautiful book which kind of explains a lot of things that I've been experiencing too. So in the tabernacle, in the wilderness, there were 12 tribes that followed this tabernacle. And as they followed the tabernacle through the wilderness, they were allowed to go from the wilderness across the Jordan River and into the promised land if they would follow that pattern. So it's the same thing now, is to follow the pattern, let it take you, and it will take you to the promised land. And um, there's no more waiting then for the Christ to return, because it has happened already, and it's being awakened that what we're awakening is is the coming of Christ. And it's not just Christianity, it's all these other religions. There's these 12 tribes. Jesus was the tribe of Judah, and he came through the east gate of the tabernacle, his tribe Judah, and the priests, they came through the east gate, which was the same gate in the Garden of Eden that man got kicked out of. So when you come back through the tabernacle, you're entering back into Eden. But then that leaves 11 other gates. And so what I've been shown is those 11 other gates are all the tribes, the flocks of the earth. Every man, every religion is there and will be bought into this idea of the tabernacle and the love. And when it's all said and done, it's just as simple. Come back to our source, and our source is love. And we become, I guess my message is, we are love. Or the Beatles, all we need is love. So,
Did you say that you have a website or something where you list the steps to how to do your
yes,
meditation?
I
What
did
it
put it on your email,
All
but
right.
I'd have to put it on. I think if you go to YouTube and
Mhm,
and search I am tabernacle meditation, you
mhm.
should be able to find it.
All right, and I'll put a link to it in the video description.
Okay. I think I sent that, Jeff, to you in that email that I had sent you before, but I could resend it to you too. So
So are you saying that the key to suffering is submitting to it?
surrender, surrender. Yeah, like I think that's a really Buddhist. The necessary suffering. The Buddhists have a real good handle on that. Eckhart Tolle talks about that, where he was suffering so much and he let go uh, because the fear. What the fear that in the metaphor, when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, they were afraid and they hid themselves with fig leaves. And so the metaphor shows that we all are born in the natural into a fear state. And in order to get free from that fear state, there's some suffering that goes on. The first piece of furniture in the tabernacle is the altar of sacrifice, and you go in, and the lamb is slain and burned on the sacrifice. And what it's a metaphor of our suffering. We share in the sufferings, and Jesus went before us. He just was a man like us, and he went into this tabernacle. He studied the tabernacle as a boy. That's all he did, is go to study the Torah. So he was versed in that, and he knew he was the example for us, so that we would be exactly like him, sons of God, not different, not below him, but we are him. We're part of him. When he had the Last Supper, he got rid of, he didn't get rid of, but Judas went through his thing and he was gone because of his greed. And then there were 11. And then the metaphor for it in the mystery is that Jesus was the 12th. So he showed them, he said, drink this cup and eat this bread, and you remember my body. In the table of remembrance in the tabernacle, eat this and you remember that you are God. You remember that place in the near death experience where you were in the beginning, and you are and you will be. So all this fear leaves you, and you begin to realize that nothing has changed. You awaken to the fact that I am. The near death experience took me back to where I was in the beginning, but it was at that moment when I went through that experience. It was there, and it's there right now in my meditation. And when my physical body, I'm 77, I have not that many years left. When that leaves, my spirit body the physical body falls away, but my spirit body and my soul goes with that back to that place I was at where I met my parents. And then I guess now I believe that we come back again. We have a choice. I believe there's something like negotiation that goes on again. We are assigned either to be guardian angels or to come back as another physical body, and then remember through that physical body maybe even deeper things about how we are that simple love. And like Elijah was the guy that the prophet, and then John the Baptist came and Jesus said he's Elijah. So that he was Elijah reincarnated. So the Christian church doesn't believe in reincarnation, but it's everywhere. It's in the Bible. Actually, it's uh, the Apostle Paul went to the third heaven. He went into meditation. John was in the spirit on the Lord's day, and he went up into meditation. And every time they talk about a mountain in the Bible, it's a metaphor of meditation. Like the upper room, they were all in the upper room. They were in a spirit of meditation. Um, Jesus went up and away into the mountain to meditate. Moses went up into the mountain to meditate. Elijah was sent to the same mountain that Moses found the tabernacle, the same cave to meditate, and that's where he was matured and learned and was discipled by that med- that tabernacle pattern. So it's a very, very powerful thing. It's not something you can explain in the natural. You can't study it intellectually, but you can experience it if you just know the simple 7 steps. And I believe that in the meditation, all the esoteric religions that are actually ahead of other religions that don't believe in meditation, because when I was example of that is I was first starting to see this thing that I could experience this meditation. I wanted to create a chant, like a Om chant, or something that would be Christian. Well, I I couldn't find anything. I found some nice soft music, and then the spirit said to me, "Why don't you use the Om?" I've trained those people for years, and they're the experts on meditation. Use their Om. And so I'm going, okay. So my fear was gone that I was going to be deceived because I was not the same religion, but because I think they're all one in the end. That they all come back to those 12 gates, and they all enter back in, and then the New Jerusalem descends, and that's the end of the awakening. For that is actually happening. I believe the birth pangs of that son. It's like the Son of God is born in us, and we all become sons of God. So the birth pangs of that, I think, are what we see today a lot with our darkness that's upon us. The political wars and all the things. I think we're going into a time of birth pangs, but it's nothing to worry about, because the birth pangs are going to bring the birth of the Son of God within us, and we're going to all see that we are Him. And that's like He says. Jesus said, "When you do this, one of these little ones, you do it to me." So He's trying to show them subtly, um, "I am that I am. You are me, and I am you, and there's no difference. You don't have to please a God upstairs. All you have to do is come in within yourself and listen and be still, and let that peace descend on you." And so that's why the NDE for me was like it took away all the fear that I had had, and told me to go ahead, and that I had a message, and I should um, go into that meditation daily, and have a chance like with you. If I have a chance to share it, I will, because the beauty of it is it's within you, and it's within me, and it's within every Muslim and every Jewish person and every Christian and every Buddhist and every Hindu and every atheist. Everybody has this tabernacle within them, and that's the message.
Are you saying that we all are God collectively, or
Yes.
there's a piece of God within all of us?
Well, it could be both, but I would say we are the I am that I am. I would say um, when we eat that bread, and when Jesus gave the bread, He said, "This is my body." And when we go into that tabernacle, and we remember who we were. Everything is remembering. And yes, I think we're the corporate. I think God is corporate, and I think He is us. And I think the tabernacle, when you go deep into it and you see the government of the 12 surrounding the tabernacle, and uh, David, the king who loved the tabernacle, was in a line of inheritance that went back to Melchizedek, no beginning or no end. He was a king and a priest, and we are all kings and priests. We're a nation of kings and priests. So yes, I'm saying we are all God. That's who God is. He's us.
Would you say that God then just separated himself or itself into trillions of pieces?
Well, here's what I believe, and I haven't been confirmed this, but I believe that 12, number 12, and you look in the Revelation, he saw 144,000. There were three tribes on each side of the four of the tabernacle, and um, there were three tribes with 4,000 in each. Was that it, or was it 3,000 with four? Yeah, four sides with 3,000 on each side, and when there's 100, you add it all, 12 times 12, 144,000. And it- they descend dressed in white at that time when it's revealed, and I think they're spiritual identities, and I think they are what God is. They show what God is, and I think the trillions of people are one in that. Those aren't just separate. We're not each separate. I think we're a part of one of those 144,000 identities. That's why you have soulmates. I think you understand that person's in the same identity I am. We are. It isn't a numbers. It's a government of God. And it's 12,000, 144,000. I believe that reveals the corporate God, and I think we're all part of that. And it's hard to understand in the natural, but in the spiritual, it makes sense. That's who God was in the beginning. That's who God wants to show us we are on earth. That's who we will be in the eternal. And I just think the tabernacle is where you go to find the mystery of God is revealed in the tabernacle. And I think there it makes sense when you look from it from that side. But if you look for it with the natural mind, or what's called the tree of knowing good and evil, the metaphor for that is that's our natural mind, and that's where good or Satan and God are battling it out. But in Jesus, he cut that at the root and cast it into the river and into the Dead Sea, where there's nothing left. And that's where the fear goes away. That tree is ripped out. The fear is gone, and all he's left is a tree of life. And then the tree of life is where you understand, and it all makes sense. But if I try to explain it from the tree of knowing good and evil, uh, I'll probably get another. I'd be number 30,001 of all the 30,000 Christian denominations there are. So try to stay away from trying to explain things and makes this is the way it is. But for me, that makes sense, and I'm going to find out, because I'm going to keep going into that tabernacle, and when I do that, uh, it's it's just nirvana. It's what it is. It's the place of rest and love. All you need is love. The summer of love. That was like a drop of rain from the downpour that's happening to me now, and I just want to share that with others, I guess.
Has the memories of your near death experience faded over time?
No, actually, every day I'm reminded of it. It's kind of interesting because when I go into the meditation, it's like, oh yeah, this is where I was, and then it gets even deeper. Then I get to visit with certain past loved ones, and they're very real. These people that have the gift of talking to them, channeling, it's very real to me. I believe that's 100% that's all real, because that realm is they're more real than our what we see. I think the spirit realm is within us, surrounding us. Our guardian angels are always here, and they can be communed with if we get to that need to do that. They're always there. I know, and each person has two. Like the mercy seat, there were two cherubim, and their wings were crossed, and that means everything that's spiritual is within you for you. Everything that's God is within you for you. And those angels come into that realm, and they hover over you, and yeah, and that's why the near death experience was generated. That for me actually catapulted me. I don't know if that's a word, to the spiritual, uh, to go in and just let the be taught. There's a teaching spirit that says we need no man to teach us. The spirit itself will reveal itself to us. And Jesus said to Peter, he said, flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you, that I am the Christ. That's why he was the rock, because the stone in our mind is where the revelation comes to us, and the spirit speaks to us and says, you are me and I am you, and brings you into a place of rest. And it's a wonderful way to live on earth. I'm just ecstatic about where I've been able to come from from a person. I had an experience when I was a little kid, and if you went to a movie in the Mennonite religion, you were going to go to hell. And if you were caught in a movie theater while and Jesus came, you were doomed. You're not going to go to heaven. So there's all these things you couldn't do because if you happen to be doing those things right during Jesus was coming soon, of course, and if you were sinning, you wouldn't go. So you had this fear. And I was a little kid. I remember one time my mother wasn't home when I came home from school, and I thought she'd been raptured. There's this teaching that everybody's going to disappear. That's good, you know. And I just screaming that didn't make it. Of course, she had gone shopping. But anyways, I was just my neighborhood for a dime. You could watch a Mickey Mouse movie at the local theater. So I went with him, and we were standing in line to get in the theater on a Saturday afternoon. And one of the elders from the Mennonite church drove by in his car and saw me in line with my friend, and it slammed his brakes on, jumped out of the car, and grabbed me violently threw me in his back seat, and he told me, "If Jesus comes in the next 2 hours and you're in that theater, you're going to go to hell." And he took me to my mother's back home, and my mother was understanding as I snuck out the back door and went back to see Mickey Mouse. But those are the kind of things, you know, that the kind of fear that is generated by a lot of religions. You know, everybody has to wear the same uniform because there's a God watching. Everybody has to, all these things you see in religion that are really dark bondages of fear, you know, that not really, once you let go of that, there's really no rules you need to keep. You keep the law of love. He says, I write my word in your heart and your mind. And the tabernacle is made without hands. Jesus said, you tear down this tabernacle, I'll rebuild it in 3 days. So what he was saying is those 3 days, when he came out of that grave, he bought the tabernacle back. So that's why the tabernacle is really a beautiful place to go to meditate now and to experience that divine love just flowing through you, and it changes everything. Changes your ideas about, first of all, about God, but what's good and evil, and what you realize that there's all those things you feared are just not there, and you're free.
I didn't mention this in the beginning, but you're also an artist and a musician. What type of
Right.
art do you create?
I do. I get one here. Uh, I do landscapes. I do. This is a kind of a shepherd painting I did of I went to Holland. My brother lives in
Hmm.
Holland, and there was a shepherd boy there.
It's very
And
nice.
shepherds have always been close to my heart because of the flocks of Israel. You know, the Lamb of God in the tabernacle. And there's all these metaphors about sheep. All we like sheep have gone astray and turned to our own way. And then the flocks come back and they come into this government in surrounding the tabernacle. And as Jesus said, I have other flocks besides you. So he's trying to show them that these mystical things are the truth, and that these religions that were created from what Jesus did are like lasted about his message really got drowned out by that tree of knowing good and evil. That natural mind began to try to understand God, and they used Jesus as God up above somewheres. And Jesus never wanted to be that. That's why he left. He wanted us to know that we are him. So that's yeah, I did a whole series of paintings that are on that website on the tabernacle. I did an art show of the 7 pieces of furniture in kind of an abstract, mystical way, and that's all on that web page.
Have you ever painted the angelic beings or any other things from your NDE?
Kind of, I've been doing some mystical things lately, and some of them have had angels in them, but I don't have any here. I have a home in Phoenix or Sun City, Arizona. I've been there 5 months out of the year, and I do a lot of painting out there. But I have some of them online. I could put a couple of them on your Facebook page if you like.
Okay.
Some of the mystical ones I've done. So, and I've done some wrote some songs there. I do a lot of silly songs about granddaughters and my wife's Amazon shopping, and but then I also a few mystical tunes that I've written on my music webpage. It's just Stephen Klassen music uh, on YouTube. So but there's a few musical songs there too. So it's inspiring. I've kind of as I'm aging, I'm kind of letting up a little bit on music and art a little bit. Just kind of I spend a lot of time meditating. Actually, I spend quite a bit of my day in and out of meditation, but yeah, that's what I've done.
So
I was an art teacher.
if people learn how to do the meditation that's on your YouTube channel, can they have a near-death like experience without the trauma?
I would believe so. That's why I put it there, and that's my hope. I've had some people, especially in Australia, respond to it that way. It hasn't been real popular, and because I believe because of the timing, because of the there's a time and a place for every. But I do believe that the tabernacle and the metaphors of Israel will come alive. Now I know that I've got a friend named Aaron Tomlinson. If you want to look up he's got a beautiful web page, but he teaches often on the metaphors of Israel, and it just blows your mind away. It's so beautiful that the uh, the truth that comes out of that. But I think a person would go there, and I believe if you just go through the introduction and then be still, go to the first piece of furniture, and I actually go through the 7 pieces as I kind of verbalize how I would meditate a particular day. It's always different every day. It's always more beautiful and different things. And each person will have a very personal experience from where they're at, I believe. But I also believe they will begin to remember that light within them through that meditation. Yes, I do. So
Do you have
I
anything
encourage anyone to do that.
do you have anything else you're working on that you want people to know about?
Well, mostly that. I've just personally am growing in that meditation myself to the point where now I used to get like a flash of light, and it just amazed me. What is this? And then it was because the meditation was starting to grow in me. Now I'm at the point where it's matured. If I take 2 deep breaths and am still and close my eyes, and I usually use headphones with Om, this my spirit identity immediately descends, and I'm in this state of nirvana, just like that, and I can stay there now. Um, not to brag or anything, but just to say it's available for anyone that goes there. I know that because that's in us. It's part of us, every man. So if you, I mean, there are other beautiful ways to meditate. I wouldn't put down anything mystical. I always enjoy and appreciate. I know there's um, Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book about Jesus, and I got friends that have followed him. There's always beautiful mystical things going on, but tabernacle has been hidden, I think, for a reason. That in the end it would be revealed as how to come from the wilderness into the promised land, and it has something for every religion. And I believe, of course, the Jewish religion doesn't recognize it that way, but some do. There's some mystical Kabbalah there is kind of like that a little bit, but generally speaking, they're still under this tree of knowing good and evil, which you have to confront in your meditation. Actually, every day you go to that place. You start there, and you die to all the fear, and you go into that grave in Jesus, in the spirit of oneness, and then that light from the stone world back comes into you in meditation, and that light takes you through the 7 pieces of furniture. So that's I think I just would say that encourage someone to try it. If I have my email in there. If someone wants to talk to me about it, I'd be glad to visit with anyone about it on that YouTube page.
All right. Well, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
I'd say the kingdom has come on earth as it is in heaven. I'd say we are him and he is us. And I'd say when we love each other, we're loving God in his fullness.
Steve, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Anytime, Jeff. I loved being with you.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.